Welcome everyone for the Careers in Neuroscience panel discussion. We'll be beginning shortly. Okay. Okay, so welcome to the panel discussion on careers in neuroscience. I feel extremely honored to be moderating this session with the amazing panelists that we have here. Today, we have among us a researcher, a clinician, an entrepreneur, and a PhD student who will be sharing their experiences regarding their careers. And we hope that the audience will get some amazing insights through this session. I would like to introduce the panel that we have with us here today. Dr. Poonam Thakur, as you may recognize from her talk yesterday on replacing lost cells in the brain, lessons from Parkinson's disease, is here with us. Dr. Thakur is a member of the faculty at IISCR Thiruvananthapuram and is a recipient of the highly competitive Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance Early Career Fellowship. She has worked as a postdoctoral fellow in the lab of renowned scientist Professor Andrew Birkeland, wherein she developed a humanized pathophysiologically relevant rat model of PD. This work was published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, and she won the prestigious Junior Scientist Award by International Parkinson and Movement Disorder Society in 2016. Throughout her career, Dr. Thakur has won numerous international travel awards, published several first author papers, and has served as a reviewer for leading international journals. We welcome you here, ma'am. So we also have with us Dr. Shantala Hegde, who gave a very interesting talk yesterday on neuromusicology and the intersection of multiple disciplines in this area. Dr. Shantala Hegde is an associate professor and consultant to the neuropsychology unit the and the Department of the Neurorehabilitation at the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, also known as NIMHANS. She obtained her PhD in the field of clinical neuropsychology from NIMHANS, and her specific focus is in the area of music perception and cognition and the application of music-based intervention in neuropsychological rehabilitation. Dr. Hegde has established and currently heads the Music Cognition Lab at NIMHANS, the first of its kind in India. She is also a vocalist trained in Hindustani classical music. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am. So there's this very interesting quote I saw by Dr. Watt that is, curiosity is the wick in the candle of learning. As a person studying curiosity at IIT Gandhinagar, this quote is extremely relatable to me, and I'm guessing it is so for Soumya as well. Soumya Bhattacharjee describes himself as a curious individual who is most intrigued by the nature of self and human consciousness. This curiosity led to a career in neuroscience. During his PhD, he performed invasive deep brain recordings and studied the neural code of learning at NCBS Bangalore. These findings inspired him to form a neurotech company called the Brain and Tech Neuroscience to continue his research and use neuroscience to benefit ordinary people. Thank you so much for being part of the panel today. So I once was looking into PhD basically courses that were PhD offers that were available, and I came across this really cute image of a turtle, and there was a quote associated with it, which is, "Your speed doesn't matter, moving forward is forward." Now, this association is generally there with PhD, and it's considered as a very daunting task. So to share his perspective on this, we have Sagar Chaturvedi. Sagar is a PhD scholar from National Forensic Sciences University. He's actively working and learning in the field of applied neuropsychology and neuroscience. His area of interest is willingness to pay and perceived utility using EEG, ERP, and FNRIS. He is the founder of Fact Media, where his team makes professional screencast videos tutorials for websites, softwares, and apps. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, without further ado, I will jump on to the next to the questions for the panel. And the first question that I would like to discuss with all of you is the conventional roles that we have in clinical and that we have in neuroscience are mainly clinical, and even the research themes that we have are sort of dominated. Conventional roles are basically dominated in neuroscience today. So my question is that how did you begin your journey in neuroscience, and did you plan to study or pursue the area that you're working in today? So I would like Shantla ma'am's perspective on this one.
Thank you, Shreya, and thank you all the team members who have organized this amazing and wonderful event. And thanks for having me on this panel. Um, First of all, if you ask me if I planned everything, no. But there was always this, interest in the field of understanding human behavior, and ultimately I got interested in cognitive psychology when I was doing my master's. And if you're kind of interested and you keep reading about a subject, some path kind of leads you to the next one. And that's how I got interested in clinical psychology and then pursued my MPhil. So in 2000, when I had to pursue my master's, I realized no better institute than NIMHANS, because the kind of patient population that we get there, and classic textbook kind of cases. So I said that's exciting. And so I did my homework before selecting the institute and joining the institute. Subsequently, it was like you have a call for that particular area in the subject. So the next specialization I took was neuropsychology. That's again closest to cognitive psychology, which was my initial interest. And that's how my journey began. Um, with regard to music has always been there in my life. As a young girl, I always learned music. There's music in the family, so music was always with me. And while doing my masters, we used to have these seminars, and I chose to do a seminar on music and psychology, not really brain, but music and psychology. And back then we didn't have so much of Google and all that, so we had to go to the library, read abstracts and all that. I realized that there was really no body of science that was there. I kind of searched for labs that were there in India. I couldn't. But while doing my MPhil, we had dissertations to do, and I chose neuropsychology. And interest was, of course, neural plasticity and brain and everything. And I worked in the field of schizophrenia, got nothing to do with music. But trust me, as I said, if you have passion for some subject, it will come back to you at some point. And that's what happened when I was pursuing my PhD. I did another seminar again for my department, and that was on music and brain by then. And that's how I explored about different labs abroad and got travel grants, went there, and that's how the journey started. And I never planned to establish a lab. I never thought I would do that. I mean, so earlier on in my career. But um, I feel when you're really kind of you're passionate about something, um, you will start getting opportunities. And I think that's where the journey started. It's to make it very short in that sense. There will be challenges, of course, but it's always that you have this kind of unquenchable thirst to understand a subject, and try and understand it from a multidisciplinary perspective once again. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shantla ma'am. Talking about the unquenchable thirst, I would like Poonam ma'am to share her perspective as well.
Yeah, well, unlike Shantala, my foray into neuroscience is purely accidental, actually. During my undergrad and postgrad, we had neuroscience courses. And to be honest, I did not enjoy them that much. Learning about all these neuroanatomical terms and tons of names of different regions and all of these neural circuits, I was not a fan of that. And my master's I actually did in lung cancer field. I was nowhere close to neuroscience, and I was not planning at all to study neuroscience. It just so happened that that's how my luck clicked. I entered a neuroscience lab. But once I entered the lab, actually, I very quickly fell in love with the topic of my research, which was about Parkinson's disease. And at that point, I realized that I did enjoy neuroscience, but there are certain aspects which I enjoy more than the other ones. So those circuits and all I was not enjoying, but the molecular level and the behavioral output of animal, that is something that was very exciting to me. And that excitement I still carry. I think in that lab I really found a love of my life for research, you know. So then I went on to do my first postdoc in field of Parkinson's, my second postdoc in field of Parkinson's, and now my lab is also in the field. So I have, really held this very closely to me, this topic overall. But within this topic, I do not restrict myself to, I just want to do this one technique, or I want to explore it only from this angle. Within the big domain of this, I'm open to anything and everything. So I have gone from behavioral to molecular biology to electrophysiology and whatnot throughout my journey in this field and working in different labs. So, yeah, I mean, my point in telling you, my initial disinterest was is not to really tell you about my nalaiki, if I may use the Hindi word, but just to tell you that it's possible to go and venture into field that would hold your interest for long time, even at a very late stage. Here we have a pretty motivated bunch who even at undergrad stage knows what they want to do and where their interest lies. But even if you don't know, it's okay, and it's still possible that your interest might change. So be open to possibilities. You never know what might happen.
Yeah, that is really true. Like exactly just what Shantla ma'am has also said about just following your passion, and also about being open to new experience as you said. So Soumya, would you like to share your experience on how curious you are about the neuroscience, and how it led you to finally start your own company?
Right, sure thing. All right. So it wasn't neuroscience itself that made me curious. It was some questions that I wanted to answer, and neuroscience felt like the way to go. Like I said, in like you mentioned in the introduction, I mean, the nature of self and consciousness, these were the things that always motivated me even when I was in school. And reading popular science books and even old philosophy can only get you so much. You realize that in order to answer questions seriously, you have to use science, at least to the best of my knowledge. So that was always the motivation, and the thing that I wanted to do was to work with cyber brains. So cyber brains basically is a brain which has a lot of implants, such that you have a very nice interface with the silicon world, and you can have seamless data flow between the human brain and the silicon world. And by data I mean including memories, and maybe even perception of where you are, perception of self, and all of that. So that's what I really wanted to work on, and currently I'm not working on that, uh, for multiple reasons, because I don't think we are there yet. We can't do those kind of things. We have to understand a lot of the basics first. But that was always my North Star goal, you could call it. So during my PhD, I was 100% sure that I would want to do neuroscience of learning and memory, to the extent that I promised myself that if I didn't get into a neuroscience lab even after getting into NCBS, I will quit PhD, because PhD is just not worth doing if I couldn't work on those questions. Then I thought, okay, hey, like I get to work in a particular lab on understanding the mechanisms of learning and memory, and I thought, okay, that's the closest I can get. So I've been following this gradient descent approach, like you improve a little bit, and you try to go towards your North Star. You can't jump, but you go there slowly. So that's how I ended up doing my picking my, or being really happy with the lab and with the PhD work that I chose. And as a next step, I looked at, of course, artificial intelligence, which can understand brain recordings. And again, we are not there yet. It's just it's still a long way. So I thought, okay, that's a better segue to go to my final goal of working with a cyber brain or creating a cyber brain implant. So that's sort of been my path. My goal has been fixed, and I've been making sort of incremental steps in going towards that goal. And as for the company, well, I mean, I would have been perfectly happy working in academia as well, as long as I get to work on that. But it seems to me to progress fast enough, or in order to reach that goal in my lifetime, I need to speed things up. And I felt that having your own company, being able to drive it, etc., etc., were better ways of reaching that. So yeah, my goal has not changed. I knew from a very early age that is what I wanted to work on, and I'm still going to work on it, and I'm just making my way to it in the path of least resistance as I see it.
That's pretty amazing. That actually reminds me of a quote by Albert Einstein, I suppose, which was logic takes you from A to B, but imagination
Yeah.
takes you everywhere. Yeah.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that yeah.
Mm. And I think he has multiple other quotes comparing logic and imagination, and how imagination is way more important, but we tend to foster logic more and sort of kill the imaginative mind, and we should not be doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so they go hand in hand, and it's really amazing that you're able to realize, especially that this is exactly what you want to do, and be very specific about your drive towards it, and follow the path that you think is leading towards the North Star, as you
Yeah.
call it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's a lot
Yes,
of fun.
that's
Yeah. A lot of fun doing this.
yeah, I would like to ask Sagar to share his experience as well in his career all through in neuropsychology, neuroscience.
Okay, hi. So, hello everyone. This is Sagar, and I'm very thankful to Shreya and everyone in the Project Encephalon and Stimulus for giving me this chance to speak in this beautiful panel and this huge audience. So, first thing I just want to say that listening to everyone, that I can say that best things come out of nowhere. I have just also experienced that. Also seeing these new peoples, all of these Maxima undergrads, and they're already looking forward to what they want to pursue, specifically neurosciences and allied fields. Starting my journey, I started my bachelor's in biotechnology honors with a work in spinal cord injury. After that, I came to Gujarat Forensic Sciences University to do my neuropsychology, specifically because of the labs that they have had here. So I was very amazed at the very starting that they have EG from brain products, very renowned companies, which most of the institutions do not have till date. So I was very excited. We also got FNIRS in between, and I worked in FNIRS regarding cortical activation in the aggression using FNIRS. So how the brain flow works when you are aggressive regarding to different kind of stimulus, whether it can be related to voice, images, or videos. How we specifically how which part of the brain is activated. In the long run, how we can control it. So that was not the part of the study. That was just the imagination. So the master's time was really great. I met some beautiful people. I must say that with the academics is important, but I think the people that we meet in our academia, in the friends, the friend circle and everything, they also decide that what we want to pursue in the future. Because all the thoughts entangling, we used to come into our hostel room, all of these batchmates, and we used to brainstorm that what you want to do, what you want to do, and they just like going everything out of the line. Everyone was blank. Oh my god, he's doing that, so should I do that? He's doing that, so should I do that? But at the very end, I'm very thankful that my batchmates, my seniors, juniors, they were really helpful to each other. I think that is the very important thing. That's the very actually humane thing that we should first do before after going to the academy. So in the meantime, during my final bachelor's, I started freelancing for at the way the idea for Fact Media, the small company that I'm running right now, it just got the construction page up. So the idea came. A lot of people were not aware of how to perform, how to use the softwares actually, how to use the softwares, how to use the web apps, whether it is related to any e-commerce site or whether it is related to any kind of academia or industry, because it is quite complex. the way that the company make their software, it is according to them. They do not pursue to they have a very small sample size on how it will affect the individual, the UX UI design or whatever it is. So I thought, why not just start it? And I started in my bachelor's final year, and and I continued freelancing for 4 years, and after that I've converted into a complete company, and now we are a group of 4 people who are professional script writers, video editors, voiceover artists, and the whole production team. So they're a group of 3 to 4 people who are also undergrads, and I strongly recommend that if anyone is starting a company, anyone is looking forward, you should hire undergrads. You should go for students in the 12th standard, 11th standard, and masters, because it is the time when they learn how to actually interact with people. Because I've come across everyone, and I have tend to see that they are very good in academics, but their communication skills and everything is not very good. And I think it is very important when you go in the outside industry. So after going that, I got into my PhD in the same university. I got an amazing mentor, an amazing supervisor, has a strong work ethic, I must say, a very strong scientific background knowledge. And today I am pursuing my PhD in willingness to pay and perceived utility using EEG and FNS, and we are looking forward to get an eye tracker too. This field is related to majorly consumer neuroscience and neuromarketing. So this is just a quick gist that what I do, and how it went through. And I must say it was a very pleasurable and very beautiful experience. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sagar. Thanks for at least telling us the students' perspective, where it's really important. Sometimes your friends are influential in the way you make decisions as well. And so glad that you're able to, you are, have identified a problem and you're following a solution towards this, so toward it, much like Soumya is basically identifying a point and that he wants to explore, and then just following that. So that's pretty amazing. I would actually encourage all the panel members to look at the questions and maybe answer them that are coming in the chat box as well. So let's just go to the next question that we have. Poonam, I would like you to take this one first. So basically, we have a lot of ideas, a lot of us students in neuroscience, we have a lot of ideas and we want to explore everything, especially when we're budding researchers. So how do you realize a passion from a fleeting interest? How do you differentiate between that, and how do you decide that this is exactly what I want to do and pursue? And while you're thinking about this, probably answering it, I would also like it if you're able to mention probably the importance of a mentor and what role they play in our decision making into what we think is going to be our career.
I like to believe that one should remain open-minded, especially the younger you are. It's better to stay open to different ideas and different fields. Yes, sometimes you're very passionate about some subjects, and I think the basic difference between a fleeting flush of oh, what a great idea this is, to a sustained interest that you would want to invest next 5 to 7 years doing the PhD on that topic or something like that. There are a few pointers you could use. For example, if something has caught your interest, then most likely you are going to read about it, right? And then you might even go and listen to some talks about the topic. How many days would you like to continue listening to the talks? Can you tolerate that topic or that small idea over and over again? Are you talking about it yourself, or when you are just sitting and relaxing, or maybe in your bed, and are you thinking about that idea? I think just noticing yourself for a stretch of a fleeting interest wouldn't hold you for a long time, right? Of just see it through. Also, once you have a bit of more concrete ideas that okay, this is the way I want to approach a problem or something, it's always a good idea to read, and not just read a bit peripherally, but really go deep into your reading. And once you try to start getting good overview of the field, it will also start to make sense. If the idea that you are passionate about or you are very interested in, does that make sense? Or, is it very, very, uh, awkward or odd? So a good way to check this also is to not talk to just field experts, but talk to someone else who is not in the field at all, works in something very different. Just run that idea by them and see how they react. Because field people will have a very different kind of perspective, but sometimes an outside perspective is very helpful in determining, the viability of an idea or how good of an idea it is. And many times it happens that, the ideas you have or interests you have, people have tried and failed at them. So when you are reading papers, what you are reading are success stories, right? Failed experiments don't make it to papers very often. So to dig into what has failed takes far more work and effort. So you might need to talk to people individually, or get hold of someone at a conference or in a meeting, or just drop a cold email that, hey, I'm reading about this and this is it. What do you think about it? So that way you have to stay open about the possibilities of the idea not being the one and only thing. As I think yesterday, one of the attendees dropped me a message on Twitter about an idea, and what I responded to them was, kill your darlings. Don't be madly in love with any hypothesis or ideas, because that's the first hindrance in way of a scientist. You just have to stay very open-minded that, whatever this idea is, it may just fail eventually. So you have to stay very open about that. And next is about the mentorship. So again, in my early days, I really didn't know anything at all. I didn't know what mentorship is, what mentors are. I just, this is my master's guide or this is my PhD supervisor. That's all I knew. In the hindsight, if I think of it, I have learned a lot from them, right? But it was not really any formal mentorship. And to be honest, I was just, busy with this lab work and busy with some extracurricular activities, and never cared for or thought about mentorship at all. It was when I moved for my postdoc abroad and I started to see, oh, there are these career development seminars. Oh, there are these things. Oh, there is formal mentorship plans, this and that. Oh, there is so much in this world out there, and I had no idea. And then as my career stages also kept growing, right, the need to know more, which is outside your immediate domain of the lab work, increased. As I'm looking to transition back to India, or to write a grant application, for example, or now that I'm heading a lab, so I have to know how to manage students, how to balance teaching and this. So the complexity of the issues that I'm dealing with and the scope of things I'm dealing with is increasing. So as I'm going further in this complexity hierarchy, I'm feeling the need of mentorship more and more. So now, since my postdoc time, actually, I have met several people whom I have pretty informally made my mentors. Whenever I feel oh, this is a tricky situation, I don't know how to handle it, I just drop a mail, drop a text, call them, or whatever. I just reach out to them. And it's not just one of them. I think it's okay to have several mentors, because they could cater to different parts of your life and personality or work or whatever. So I have also remained pretty, open, and I did not put any effort into finding a particular mentor. I never went by any formal channels. I happened to meet people. I just like to talk. I start talking to someone. I felt, oh, this is the person whom I think we match well. We can communicate at a very good level, and this person is understanding me, and I can appreciate what they are telling me. So just I have never written will you be my mentor mail. It just has happened informally and organically over time. One thing is, what the best mentorship has not come from top down or from someone very senior. Best mentorship have often come from my peers. That's what we often tend to not pay a lot of attention to. But as Sagar said, right, they influence you to the maximum extent. So you want to also talk to your peers. and your other postdoc peers, your other PhD cohorts, and now my other fellow young PIs who are out there. Anything I have to, I just run to them. Hey, by the way, how do I do this? Hey, how are you doing this? They are the best mentors for me at this stage. So that's what it is. And last point I want to mention is that it's not just about receiving mentorship. Mentorship also means paying it forward. We receive it from so many people, directly or indirectly. So one has to also make sure that you keep paying it forward in whatever capacity you can, because no matter how young you are, there is always someone younger than you or more inexperienced than you. If you start giving it back to them, you are also learning how to give mentorship, and you also learn perspective of a mentorship giver, right? And you also learn to be a better mentee in that sense. So it's an overall growth for everyone involved. Yeah. So yeah,
Thank
that's
you,
all.
ma'am. That I think that was pretty insightful for everyone, and especially that yeah, we should be thinking about mentoring our young people as well. Like I'm a master's student, and there are maybe bachelor's students as well coming in, asking me how do I move forward, what do I choose, and yeah, it's important, I guess, to also like come together as in your science family or a science family, and just telling everyone that it's okay to not be sure. It's okay to probably sometimes make wrong decisions, but to just go forward with it and be there for them if if that's the need. So with that, like Soumya, I'm really curious to know how you decided on basically starting your own company. I know that you mentioned that this was the easiest, I mean, like the good way, because you have control over the direction of it. But it's a big decision to start your own
Yeah.
company in this
Yeah.
area. So what motivated you, and how come you like decided on doing this, and what advice would you give to the youngsters who are also thinking about starting their own startups, probably because there are a lot of funding and grants available for that.
Yeah, exactly. That's so there are two ways you always decide, right? One is the logical decision, the other is emotional decision. The emotional decision was always, this is what I want to work on. I already told you what I want to work on, cyber brain implants. But so how do I get there? So the logical decision comes in the following manner. There are a lot of people doing their PhDs currently in the world, and it has increased a lot. Number of postdocs have increased, but tenured faculty positions, if you look at it all over the world, it has not increased in compared to the explosion in the number of PhDs. Government funding in most research, well, it's sort of restricted. Whereas if you look at the other side of things, if you look at the venture capitalist side, there's a lot of money floating around over there. They play by their own rules, but that's okay. You can learn the rules anytime. But the money is flowing much more freely over there, and in order to do any good work you need money, because you need to hire good people, and good people will always cost you a lot of money. Um, so that was sort of the logical decision, because I felt that after my PhD, I'll probably, if I stayed in academia, I'd do a postdoc. In that case as well, you'll have some freedom but not incredible amounts of it. But now people do second postdocs, and that probably takes up a total of what, 7 to 9 years, and then if you're lucky, you get a position. If you're very very lucky, and if you're very very good, you get a position in a very good institute which has good funding. Let's say like NCBS, where I am right now, or many other places in India. But most places you'd still be restricted because of resources, and that'll hamper the work. So I did not want that. That was sort of the logical reason to shift. And people say it's a risky decision. I mean, sure. I mean, everything is a risky decision. I mean, if you're not taking the risk, then you're choosing to go in a route which will give you lesser returns, which is also a risk. There are opportunity costs to not taking that risks. So if you want me to give an advice, I would say definitely you should explore this. If this is not the thing for you, you'll know it very quickly. There's nothing wrong with that. If you, let's say, do a PhD and then you try to have a startup, and then you realize, no, this is not my thing, but during that period, let's say you created a product, hired a bunch of people, raised some money. I mean, imagine these three skills that you have, and now if you want to do a postdoc, you say, okay, look, this is my PhD work, here's my publication, and then for the next few years I was doing this other thing, but in this other place I have overseen the work of other people, I have raised money, I have thought a product from starting to end. It didn't work out, but that's that. I don't think that's a bad addition to your resume. I don't like, this is my hunch that it's not going to hurt your chances of getting to a good place. So I would say it's a risk with a lot of upsides but not too many downsides, so go for it.
So I was just wondering with what you're saying. So do you think that I mean, would you suggest that a person, maybe they're not that interested in academia, make the complete switch into doing basically business, and but what you're doing right now is also doing PhD along with handling your own company. So
No,
what
that's
do you
that's
think is
right. No, I think it can't be half-hearted. You should directly actually, no, I don't think there's one size fits all. That's a bad advice if I gave one advice and asked everybody to follow it. So I'm towards the end, towards the later half, like what do you call the old age of the PhD. So I can see the end. But I would not want to do both at the same time. Yet there are people who have a company of their own and who are full-time faculty members. There are people like that. Right now I would not want to do that. I would want to take the business up full scale, full time, dedicate all of my attention towards it. Right now I'm doing a little bit of this juggling back and forth. That's okay, it's temporary. And if somebody wants, even during their PhD, to do the PhD during the day and figure out company stuff towards the evening and night, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, some people can do that. I mean, I feel I can't do that, so that's why I'm going to jump completely onto the other ship. But if you can do it and if that's what you want, then go for it. I mean, it depends on who you are, right?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that perspective. And since we're talking about, doing what you want to do, not one size fits all, I want to bring in Shantla ma'am and probably discuss how she started the music lab. Maybe even talk about if you faced any resistance while you were trying to study something so new, and how basically you decided that, yeah, a new lab was essential in doing so in India.
Okay, so there will be challenges. That's something I think all youngsters should keep in mind. And in terms of getting clarity of what one wants to do, this is a journey. So we always have to remember it's like life journey. As Samya just mentioned, you know that there is a north, star, and then you go step by step. Frankly, when I started my work in the area of neuropsychology, I did not dream that I will do work in um, establishing a music cognition lab. No, but one thing I can always say, it's the passion for the subject. So as you start, doing your homework, as you start reading about the field, you go in depth and know who are the people who are working in this field, how did they establish the lab, what kind of work did they do, and then really interacting with those people. I think that mattered a lot to me. So it was while I was doing PhD that I went to Montreal, spent a month and a half, um, stayed in the lab. Not that I was part of any project specifically, but it was more like an internship and observership, and that kind of gave me time to reflect upon, is this the area that I really want to pursue? There were questions sometimes, where I wanted to keep my hobby separate from my professional field. I said, should I bring in music here or not? Then I have asked these questions myself. It shouldn't be that, end of the day, I dislike music and I don't like neuroscience. It shouldn't happen that way. You never know the kind of mentors you want to have and how you will progress further in your research field. But after I came back, I was pretty much clear, and that's when I explored for opportunities for youngsters to apply for research grant. So that's how I explored DST in Young Investigator Grant, and learned from, like how Poonam said, it's so important to talk to your peer group, to your mentors, and it need not necessarily be that you should only have discussion with one person, one mentor, and you could have people from other fields who can give you some inputs. And that's how my journey started. And the other important thing I would say is, when you go for conferences or meet people, keep an open mind. And that's when you never know where um, the opportunities come from. So my first collaboration as such happened for an cross cultural study with Jamshed Barucha and Megan Curtis, and I happened to meet Jamshed Barucha in a conference in Canada when I went there as a student. And coming back, it took a while. People did not accept when I said I would want to do music research. It's like, oh, you're going to do just music, you're a musician, you want to do music therapy. I said no, it's music cognition. And it was not easy. In fact, my lab was initially called as cognitive psychology lab, then it took the name of cognitive psychology and neuroscience. I have some 4 or 5 nameplates that were there. And finally, it was year and a half ago when I also was working with my Wellcome Trust grant, and that finally I got to say that it's music cognition lab. So it was not easy. It almost took 8 to 9 years. And challenges were really of this kind, where you are young, you do have projects that you goof up, you have data that made no sense. There have been times when I really wondered, am I doing it correctly? I really need a mentor, I really need to discuss. And trust me, today you're all globally connected, so it's easy to write to people, connect to people and ask for help. Or when I also have seen that when you're genuine, you would end up people kind of helping you. There will be help somewhere. It's just that we need to open our minds and let that information come in and utilize it in the right direction. So that's how I can proudly say that I have so many collaborators, or some who have taken the position of where I can call them as my mentor. So we should also be careful when we say who are our collaborators versus mentor or guide. So it can't be that everybody takes the same role. Each one contributes to our progress in different ways. So we need to kind of have some clarity on that front. So there have been challenges, really. But the positive side is, even when I applied for Wellcome Trust intermediate fellowship, I think what really comes through is, one, are you clear with what research question you want to ask? You have some vision and some goals. Is this what I really, you may not have plan ABC spelled out clearly, but you know that you're going to reach that goal, and this is the larger idea I have, which I can give it back to the society. Or the second is, somewhere along the journey, you should start asking yourself, what are the skill sets that I have? And where is it that I have to hone, and in which direction? We cannot, I always tell my students, definitely be jack of all. You don't have to be like this horse, just studying one subject. Especially students of psychology, I tell them that you need to know different subjects and different fields. You're going to meet different people from different backgrounds. But you also need to be master of at least one or two, for which you need to spend a lot of time, dedication, lot of hard work. There have been times when you feel very lonely in that journey, but that's all fine. That's all fine. Ultimately, you'll take joy in the results that you get out of that. The key point is not to get disappointed when some projects don't go well. I have had some initial EEG studies where I felt like, my God, why did I do those studies? And I don't know, I never published those. So failures are always part of the life. So I think that's something I would like to share.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah. So with since you brought it up that failures are part of research. I mean, I have some failures to account for as well, and so many mistakes that I've made in my journey to a master's. So I guess I would like a student's perspective. Like Sagar, would you like to share like how you've probably faced rejection that you faced while applying probably to universities? A lot of us don't get responses from our professors when we mail them asking for collaborations, and it's understandable. Poonam ma'am was there yesterday along with Pratik sir, and they discussed some tips on how to mail someone, how to mail a professor and approach them, but also why sometimes it's not possible to always get a response. So from a student's perspective, like how have you handled rejection? What advice would you give to the peers who are here today, and how could you make most of it?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, it is really very, heartful time to me to listen to all of you, to all the peers, Shantala ma'am, Soumya, Poonam ma'am. You all are giving me new gists and new perspectives of how to look into a problem. And I think for this, peers are peers actually are. So what you think, brainstorming and all such. So first thing that I would like to do everyone, and actually universities have also asked, like, to prepare your failure CV. That's a new trend going on, from the last 6 to 7 months, that you also have to prepare a failure CV with your proper resume, that what you have achieved till now with a failure CV. And there was I guess a poll by University of Maryland, I guess. And they polled how much preference will you give to your resume than your failure CV. And most people said that they are very much thankful to their failure CV as compared to their resume, because those failures as we know gained a lot of experience to go to that resume. So the first thing that I would like to go for the rejection that we all face in any point of our academy or industry life. First of all, if you are applying for universities, I would not recommend that you go directly to the professor. We can professors, associate professors, assistant professors, because they are busy people. We have to acknowledge that they are busy. Period. They are busy. They have lab works to do. They have a lot of students to guide. So the first thing that I would ask everyone to go for the senior PhD scholar, senior research assistant in their lab website. Because if the good university, the good research lab will publish all of the data of their research scholars and research assistant with their email addresses and all. So I would recommend that you contact with them, ask them that what is actually the professor is looking for in a PhD scholar or a research assistant, if you're looking forward to that position. Because at the very end, I've seen a lot of professors talking about their fingers burnt when they hire PhD scholars. At the very starting, they say that they know this. At the very starting point, there is a very small timeline that professors seek. Professors look into to get a PhD scholar. But after some time, they come to know that I think I've done a mistake and this is not the right person that I was looking for. So I strongly recommend that you go to not first year or second year PhD scholars, but the PhD scholars who are in the third year or fourth year of that particular lab. They will be in a very much better position to tell you that, as I said, what the professor actually wants, what kind of mentor he is, what are the work ethics and scientific experience he's having, and actually what he's looking for. So if it matches with you, then go for it. If it doesn't, then that is totally fine. You can search for the next mentor. And this, drops the rejection rate by approximately 50 to 60%. And I think it is a very important part that you keep on, cold emailing is a very important thing, I guess. And when I was cold emailing in my master's, so I've tested this. When you write in the very first sentence that I'm a student, it tend to get much more responses as compared to when you write it at the very end. So if you start with I'm a student, I'm doing this, so actually professors, PhD scholars, and everyone has a very soft corner for students, actually, because they've been into that position already, so they know the struggles that a student faces when looking forward to getting into a particular position. So I think that will be from my side. I strongly recommend that you should be persistent. If you want to go, for a particular professor or a mentor, then you should be persistent. You should connect him or her in Twitter, Instagram, whatever social media handle he or she is, having. Comment on it, show your views, because they literally want that someone look into their work, and they, if they understand it or not, and they're actually looking forward for the people who understand their work, and if they can go forward with the same idea. That's it. That will be from my side.
Hey, thanks, Sagar, for that perspective. I mean, yeah, even I think it's a good idea to reach out to the senior most PhD student in the lab. I guess that gives in more perspective on what the professor would prefer. rather than just always directly contacting the professor. It might not be always feasible for them to respond to us. And so I hope that helped out a lot of people who've been asking questions about, how to get into a certain lab, or how do you want to mail professors. I hope that helped them out a little bit more. So I guess there's just one topic that always comes up in such panels, which is about imposter syndrome, wherein you feel like, I'm here, but I just feel like maybe I'm not supposed to be here. You think that you've just got unnecessary credit. So Soumya, since you are in this, academic as well as a business area, so I would like you to just address this. So many people seem so confident and when they're presenting, when they're talking, when they're sharing their work, but do we all have imposter syndrome? I mean, I personally do, and I've faced it, and yet I have some people coming in saying that, could you help me out with this, could you help me out with that, probably thinking that I'm worth someone, or I'm worth something. That's why they're approaching me and asking me these questions. But again, in my mind, I'm like, am I good enough? So Soumya, I would like you to just probably address this
I
and
understand
talk
that, and
about.
I think that's a very valid point. And yes, more people have it than you think. I have it too all the time. So I see there are two remedies to this. Number one is, like you said, when people ask you, you know better than me, can you help me out with this? I think that does nullify the imposter syndrome temporarily. But for me, what works to really kill that imposter syndrome is to think that I'm doing what I'm doing because it's a lot of fun. By sort of gamifying my whole life as an amusement park. Like, I'm in an amusement park and there are different rides, and I'm trying the rides because it's fun, not because I'm qualified to try the rides, not because I'm going to achieve something great by doing it, but it's just a lot of fun. So I've noticed, if I sort of get into that mind frame, like, for example, if I have to speak on this panel, and I think, I don't know better than most of the people who are going to be here, what am I going to say? But the reason I said, let's say, yes to this panel is because I had a lot of fun speaking last week, when I gave my talk on my PhD and on my company. People reached out to me, they messaged me, they said, the video that I showed, they loved it, etc. It was literally a lot of fun doing that. And today as well, I had fun listening to the other panelists, I had fun answering the questions, and this is fun. So that's my go-to method of killing imposter syndrome. If you are having fun, then it doesn't matter, nothing else matters in that sense. And if you're not having fun, try to do something that's fun for you. There's no really great way of doing it. The other thing people tries to prepare, like, if you can see loopholes in your game plan, then it hurts your confidence. You feel that, oh, I'm not ready for this. That's in a way good. That helps you figure out what your loopholes are. But to have this severe emotional response and imposter syndrome can lead to anxiety, right? If you're in a field and you have to give a talk and you're like, damn, I shouldn't be here, can lead to severe anxiety. And I think at some point I had gone through a lot of that. Right now I go through it as well, but right now, by sort of gamifying the whole thing as, this is just for fun, it is like I am having a lot of fun. And I've listened to a lot of people who do this, a lot of successful people. What makes them persevere is the fact that they would rather do that than anything else. If you are focused on things that make you know you don't have to be good at it. Like, if you're having fun, the other way around, if you're having fun, you'll at some point be good at it, you'll survive, you'll probably thrive. So that's my go-to method. I don't know what you will use, but that's what I use.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I mean, having fun is also important when you're working on something so serious. And like, it's also important to have interest in
It's
whatever
not
you're doing.
serious. No, what I'm doing is not serious. It's a lot of fun. I love doing this. I don't want to do anything else because I'm not going to have this much fun doing anything else. So I don't see anything serious with my PhD work. Neither do I see anything serious with the business that I'm doing. So yeah.
I'm so glad I heard that, because that was something I've never heard before. Someone calling their PhD not serious. So that's really cool. I mean, I'm going to remember that. So Shantla ma'am, I mean, I would want a professor's input on facing imposter syndrome, because you were starting a new topic and probably not sure if this was the right thing to do. So did you also undergo something like this, and probably how you came along with that?
Um, Not really in that sense, because I was kind of pretty much clear. as I said, I was always interested in psychology. I was always interested with human, interacting with humans to know why they're behaving the way they do, kind of questions. And working with patients, I think, has been the most satisfying thing. So that kind of keeps me going every day. And the question, as I said, challenges come every day. Sometimes patients don't improve, and then you wonder what's happening and what is, and how can I do this better than what I've been doing all this while. This kind of quest goes on. um, so I've not really been, saying that there is an imposter kind of thing, but yes, there have been times within the field of. Yesterday when I was giving my talk, I mentioned that music has been approached from different perspective. So when I finished my PhD in the clinical neuropsychology field, and I got into working in the field of music cognition, it took a while for me to convince myself that, look, I'm not an experimental psychologist. So within the field of psychology itself, there are so many skill sets one has to acquire. Then I slowly convinced myself, no, I'm going to look at it mainly from the clinical point of view, and that's where I feel more comfortable with. I think it's a journey. Sometimes you will have these kind of phases of doubting one's own self, whether I'm doing the right thing. But you should always ask, what is that makes you feel happy? What, as Samya mentioned, what keeps you going? Where you would be so thrilled every morning, you'll say, this is what I really want to do. And I think for me personally, it's my clinical work that keeps me going. And in addition, how best can I help these patients? And that's exciting. Um, so if you find a topic or an idea, or you read something new and that excites you, but they're all interconnected. Ultimately, no matter what you may read, I may suddenly read a subject which is not directly related to my area of research, but you may get inspiration about something that may connect here. So it's all about how you find this interconnection between subjects and fields that you, people that you interact with, the fields that you study, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that perspective. Actually, we are almost at the end of our session, so I would just like Poonam ma'am to probably, share her thoughts on this final question, which is, how do you think a neuroscientist of this decade can do more than with a neuroscience degree in comparison to a neuroscientist of the previous decade? And what do you think has helped this transition, and how can we continue to influence this change?
Yeah. To
Poonam
be
ma'am,
honest,
I think,
yeah. So
yeah.
to be honest, I still think in India we do not really have that many masters of neuroscience programs. They are pretty few, and students go into the field of neuroscience pretty much at PhD stage, except for the ones which are going abroad. And per se, right now, I think within the country, this field is not really that well developed to give you jobs straight after masters of neuroscience programs. I mean, few things are coming up, but I do not perceive still it as, it has arrived within the country.
Mm.
We have long way to go. So I think as interest of student community grows, as more motivation goes into it, as more people are working in this field, not just from academic perspective, but also from industrial perspective, or other perspectives, like Soumya has mentioned, has talked quite a lot. So then this field will continue growing. So, and now that our worlds are so connected, it's so much easier to know about these possibilities and to find ways out. And people are so receptive and about these online interactions. I think that's probably one of the few positives of this COVID, right? Online communication and meeting has become very accepted in our lives. So much more than previously it was done. So that should definitely add to the growth in the field. But yeah, I think we still have a long way to go to make it, like, a mainstream career option the way engineering or typical medicine has been.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for bringing that up. We still need more forces joining in to tell people about this area, about its potential, maybe even just inform individuals that this exists. You have an option apart from just going into engineering and medicine. A lot of it is also involved with just the perspective of doing engineering and medicine is just more wanted, desired, and being a neuroscientist, I suppose, can also be equally desirable within our community as well. So thank you for bringing that up. I guess I would just like also, Soumya, to talk about this. I'm sorry, I just lost. I just lost track. So yeah, how can we keep this communication going? How can we ensure that we are getting more people just know that neuroscience as a field exists, and this is what you can do, and you can integrate it with a lot of other fields and areas that you're currently working with. It doesn't always have to be at a PhD level.
Well, you tell me, you guys are the expert. I mean, Project Encephalon and Stimulus are the ones doing it. I'm not doing it. So, doing this kind of an event, keep doing this. I don't know how many students who are undergrads or even high schoolers have been exposed to really high grade neuroscience, which I came to find out only after or during my PhD. You have exposed all these people to all of that, and the information that has been exchanged in events like this is incredible. So I really honestly do feel that's the answer. And as other people were mentioning, like as the need for neuroscience grows, neuroscience is coming out of the lab and just out of the clinical setup into many many sectors in life. Neuroscience is forming this very weird and interesting bond with artificial intelligence and data science, and creating a whole bunch of interesting dimensions. So the need for skilled people is going to be there, and that's number one. Number two is people at an early stage need to know that this thing exists, like you said, not just engineering and medicine, and they will find that out by coming to Neuro November 2021.
Thank you. That was the perfect, I guess, ending to this session. Thank you so much for all of you who have joined in. I hope you got like some great perspectives. You got to know, like, I mean, it's hard to be very decisive about what you want to do. You have to have a North Star. I mean, try to get a North Star, or at least explore, and just try to focus in your direction and move forward in that. Do approach your peers, your professors as well, and try to make the most of what they have to offer as well. And always stay in touch with the Project Encephalon and Stimulus if you want to grow in the area of neuroscience with more like activities and fun like NeuroNov conventions. So does anybody have any parting comments?
I think I just have one thing to say. Students of neuroscience, you're all talking about PhD. I'm sure, many of you are also following phdcomics.com. So, all the challenges that a PhD student goes through. It's not always, always a happy moment. And so what keeps us going is this, interest in the subject, whatever field that you choose. And second is be perseverant. So I think that's what takes us long way, dedication and perseverance. So all the ups and downs then feels like just a bumpy road that was there. So it's not as happy all the time that you have a lab and you have a grant and you have a PhD, and there are also challenges that we all go through. And ultimately, if you're happy with what you've done, I think that's what you should ask for. Am I happy? Ultimately, all of us should be happy. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Wonderful
Thank
talk
you.
and
Thank you.
wonderful program. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Wonderful.
All right, great talking to you all.
Yes, thank you so much for all the panelists for joining in. This was a really amazing panel. I hope it was helpful for everyone. Next, we have oral presentations. And as well as poster presentations, which were there yesterday. So we have some 10 participants who will be presenting their abstracts, and I hope you guys will be there for that.